Hello and welcome once again to Worldview. I'm Vishal Dahiya, and this week we're going to talk about Maldives. Specifically, why is Maldives important? In fact, Prime Minister Narendra Modi is on a 2-day visit to Maldives as part of his two-nation trip, where first he went to United Kingdom, and from there onwards he moved on to Maldives as well. Now, for India, Maldives is as important as India is important for Maldives. In fact, there are 60 years which have passed now since Maldives' independence and also the establishment of diplomatic relations between both the countries. 60 years is a long time, but the relationship between India and Maldives have seen both highs and lows during these 60 years. In fact, the meeting between the Prime Minister of India and the Maldivian leadership, President Moizu there, is going to be really significant. All eyes are going to be on that meeting itself as to which way this relationship will further move forward. Maldives is really important as far as maritime security aspect is concerned, and India's neighborhood first policy, and of course, from Indian interest and perspective also. So to try and understand as to why Maldives is so important to us and to others as well, and by others I mean here China as far as the Indian Ocean region is concerned, we're joined by two distinguished experts. Let me first introduce them to you. We're joined by retired Vice Admiral Shekhar Sinha. We're also joined by Professor Sanjay Bhardwaj from School of Studies at JNU. Welcome, both of you gentlemen, to our show here, Worldview. I'll begin with you, Admiral Sinha, and let's start by understanding the importance of Maldives as an island nation in the overall world geopolitics, and then perhaps we can figure out as to why it is really important for India to have those strong, friendly relationship with Maldives as far as maritime security aspect is concerned.
Well, thank you, Vishal, for getting me on this program. It's after a long time that we are together. You asked a very pertinent question, and if you look at the map, you will realize that Indian Ocean, is the crisscross of large number of sea lanes of communication. And there are two lanes which are very important, which pass very close. One is from the Gulf, which is the hub of all energy supply, particularly hydrocarbon to most of the world. And those ships pass very close to Maldives through the 8 degrees channel, and those who don't go in between, then they go down from about 1.5 degrees north channel. So I would say that if you look at the world's economy, there are four largest economy, rather the most upcoming economies who are challenging US. One is China, India, Japan, and South Korea. These are the fast growing economies. They have always been, but none of them have enough energy resource within their own country. And all of them actually source very large amounts of energy from the Gulf. And therefore, it becomes important for us for the overall security in the Indian Ocean. It is necessary for us to monitor those traffic very closely so that we know that in peacetime, if there are any non-traditional threats which emerge, we should be able to respond very quickly. And that response, the history has it. If you go back, you will find that particularly for Maldives, you had a coup attempt in 1988. Then, you had a tsunami in 2004. Then you had, water shortage. And then you had so many other problems where India is the first one to respond. And we are the first responder in the Indian Ocean, Vishal. And therefore, it is necessary for us to be present there for an overall security, maritime security, mainly during peacetime. Security will be, the non-traditional threats, which are many. You know that there piracy, there is theft, there is, shall I say, terrorism, there is hijacking, there is so many things. You've seen recently what happened. The second very important point is that the naval ships, when they're out, we are a big navy, we're the biggest navy, most powerful navy in the Indian Ocean as a resident navy. And therefore, all these small countries, all the small island nations who don't have enough resources, but they're located so precariously that they can have emergencies every now and then, well before we have it. And our ability to handle those emergencies is much more than anybody else. So, as a Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam theory, if you like,
Mhm.
we do this for the rest of the world, for all the seafarers who are using the Indian Ocean. So, broadly, this is what it is. And later on, as we go forward, we can, we
Indeed,
can.
indeed. We'll look at the specifics there as well. But you have rightly laid down the overall picture as to why Maldives is important as far as maritime security is concerned, as far as the other aspects of trade and economic security is also really significant here and India's interest. Let me bring in Professor Bhardwaj here also. Professor Bhardwaj, from your point of view, how would you assess India Maldives bilateral relation over the span of these 6 decades? Because as I was saying earlier, we've seen both highs and lows.
Thank you, Vishal, for this opportunity, and particularly while I'm speaking on India Maldives, or this is an island state. And when I see that all the island states, including all the island states, including the Sri Lanka and Maldives, both are very important for India's security. For the other aspects that Shekharji already mentioned, the country is driven by two very important objectives. One is, of course, the national security, and that the national interest that comes.
Mm-hmm.
While we are keeping Maldives into consideration, this is a very small country by population, and this is island states that you can see. Sometimes you can see that being a small state doesn't make much difference, but it is making a lot of difference. And Maldives is very important segments of India's neighborhood first policy. And under this neighborhood first policy, we tried to cultivate Maldives by different measures, bringing different investment, infrastructural development projects, and all that. But before coming these specific projects of India or Maldives, let me put it that what is India's objective while dealing with these states in Indian Ocean? The first and foremost objective is the security. And in that security, there are two aspects. One is the internal security and another is the external security. While I'm talking about the internal security, there are three fundamental concerns that India faces. One is, of course, terrorism. The second is fundamentalism. And third is the insurgency. Maldives, we have seen that over the last few years, that has become a very active hub for the radicals, extremist groups. They are getting educations, training in Pakistan, and the radicalization process is taking place in Maldives. And that concerns to any country who believes in the liberal, democratic, and inclusive values. And this we have seen that the way the Maldives has been demonstrating the people that they have been on the street and promoting the extremism, because 98% population is the Muslim in Maldives. So that is the first and foremost, that we are keeping that any kind of the violent non-state actors should not use these island states for the anti-India activities. The second is the external issue is very, some of them has been told by Shekharji, but of course that the presence of extra-regional powers, where we have seen that, there is a saying that whosoever has dominated whosoever has dominated the Indian Ocean has dominated the world. The Admiral Alfred Mahan has talked about that. So this is very important. And earlier the Britishers had dominated the Indian Ocean, then the Americans. Now the Chinese, they are making that spreading their wings in these island states. We have seen the way they have invested in Sri Lanka, the Hambantota port, that has led to the debt trap. But you can see that Myanmar, Bangladesh, Pakistan, they are building ports and all that, but they have also been significantly invested in Maldives, and that much that which is larger than the GDP size of the Maldives. So this is very important, that how these extra regional powers are impacting and having any negative impact on India's security concern in Indian Ocean, keeping that the India's growing demands of the energy security. And this is because these island states, including India, is on the route of
Indeed.
Gulf to the Southeast Asian countries. Two more objectives that India is dealing with, that of course the economic development doesn't make much difference, but it makes a difference while the Maldives has cultivated the relations with India. We have seen that India out campaign, but they have realized that this would not work while they will think about the national interest of Maldives, and when they will talk about that, because India has been the very important partner, the first respondent in this.
Indeed, Professor Bhardwaj, let me take this thought to Admiral Sinha as well, because as I was earlier pointing out, there have been highs and lows in the relationship as far as India Maldives are concerned. And Admiral Sinha, we have had numerous discussions earlier also on this aspect as to how India is equally important and significant for Maldives, but despite that, we've seen, because of the internal domestic politics, that there have been instances where there has been a sort of a China tilt or anti-India tilt in the Maldivian policy, foreign policy as well. Have we moved past that? One question. And two, what can we do to ensure that, this does not happen again, Admiral Sinha? Because as you're pointing out, as Professor Bhardwaj is pointing out, it is really, really important from India's point of view, from a maritime security aspect, both internal and external, but also from an economic and trade point of view as well.
Let me give a little detailed answer, because you have asked a number of questions in that.
Yeah.
All the smaller countries, smaller neighbors, all neighbors are smaller than us, and the sentiments of the local people will always be not anti-India, but they look at India with a lot of suspicion, because it's a huge country and they feel that India is becoming a little, overpowering in their own domestic affairs. Not for any reason, because we support them, because we give them a lot of projects like Professor Bhardwaj mentioned. But what has happened, Vishal, that, from the time, the dictatorship finished and the first election took place, in the first election itself, the very well tried out method by Mr. Qayyum, who was the dictator at that time and the president, that he was trying very hard for the first president to lose when the democracy came. But the people were really out to get the democracy in the country, because they were seeing everybody as democratic. So Mr. Nasheed, who came into power, he was quite well inclined to taking India's support and being friendly to India. And a lot of projects were signed. But once the taste of power comes to any president, they begin to look for some more developmental fund, more extra funds to do something more. And that actually lured President Nasheed to China, because the Chinese made an attempt. They opened the embassy, and the Chinese made an offer that we will join these two islands and give us the control of the airport, etc., etc. Till then, our GMR was actually doing the building of that airport and running that airport for Maldives. And uh, Mr. Nasheed actually got the GMR out of that place. So government of India realized that the things are not moving very well, and the Chinese influence has become much more. However, the government of India's policy, neighborhood first and Sagar, has been very consistent. We haven't gone away from that. Whatever projects, whatever the support that we were giving, we did not stop it. We said, fine, they will come back to come back. And there was the President Nasheed was removed, in a very quiet coup, political coup. His vice president took over for a little while, and there was an election. In that election, Vishal, there was a fair amount of underhand dealings which went on, and this we have discussed with you in past. The earlier the dictator, he wanted Nasheed to go, and
Hmm.
he wanted his half brother to come to power, Mr. Yamin, and Mr. Yamin won. And I don't want to go into detail as to how he was brought back, how the votes
Indeed,
were
indeed.
transferred, and you know better. A lot of people know now. And Mr. Yamin came. Now, Mr. Yamin was quite anti-India. Anti-India because the Chinese had already influenced it. Chinese were already there in the embassy, and we had Sri Lanka president was the elder Rajpakse, and he on and off was used to play this India-China card quite frequently, and he helped Yamin to come to power. Anyway, that happened, and those 5 years were quite bad. Whatever was the Indian project, they were kept aside. However, Mr. Yamin did his first foreign visit was to India, there was no doubt. But immediately after that, he went to China. President Xi Jinping actually made a visit to such a small country. In that period was not a very good period for us. Whatever projects we were doing, we did not stop it, but they put a stop to it. And that is
But
when
but
Pakistan.
but right now, President Moizu also earlier when he came to power, not being very conducive to India, but looks like things have changed. He did made a visit not long ago to India as well.
Quite right, Vishal. You know what has happened? Okay, I will go past Mr. Soli's regime when everything was sort of pro-India, good friend. But Mr. Moiji was born on India out the slogan. Why he did that? Because he was not alone in the party. He was a coalition candidate in which the other coalition partner was Mr. Yamin. Now
Hmm.
he was put under arrest, etc. And the Supreme Court had banned him from fighting an election. And therefore, between these two parties, they had to choose somebody more acceptable, and Mr. Moizu came. And
Okay.
he was told by Mr. Yamin that unless you have this India out, you will not get a public support. So on India out campaign, he won. At that time, I had written an article in which I had said that he will come back because this is not his view. The view is that of Mr. Yamin. And, behold, as it happened now, only he's back. So he started off with that. He did not come to India first, he went to China. But the Chinese support was forthcoming. The military delegation, the PLA delegation landed up and they started signing some, agreements. However, as the day passed, his staff told him that, look, we can't survive without India. Every morning, every day, the vegetables, the rice, dal, everything goes from here. They can't survive. It's a tourist, is the industry in that country, as Professor Bhardwaj mentioned. There's nothing else. So the tourism started falling down because India said, okay, fine, if you do. So they came down to their knees. They sent their foreign minister, and he made some very big statement that no, India is our neighbor and they are a brother and he's our friend. So all kinds of statements which they make. So
Okay.
now it appears that the President Moizu has realized that what is the importance of India, and when he was in grief, India
Hmm.
bailed them out by giving 1.1 $1.4 billion of
Okay.
help.
So in a nutshell, Admiral Sinha, what you're saying is that the environment is conducive now for India. It is a pro-India sentiment, which is again taking roots out there. But I'll come back to you. But let me bring in Professor Bhardwaj on this point here because that's where he left. Professor Bhardwaj, one, do you also agree with the assessment that it is now the tide has turned again in India's favor as far as Maldives' internal domestic politics and the attitude or way of looking at India versus China is concerned? It is pro-India. That's one. Two, how do you think we can sustain this momentum, because we have to ensure for the time to come as well that it remains the same way. It serves the interests of both the countries.
No, I think let me put this in this way. The hard realities. What Admiral Sinha has also talked, that hard realities that they realized always, but the politics works in different. All the South Asian countries, you see that there are one political constraints that takes the anti-India stance. One wants to cooperate closely and work with India. Either you take Nepal, you take Bangladesh, you take Sri Lanka, and of course, in the case of Maldives as well, where there were India first slogans, but it has become India out slogans. And on these discourse, on these political discourse, basically their real motive is to come into power on the basis of or achieve the or basically regime to rule the country, and they use these kinds of rhetorics and slogans to for their political benefits and for political discourse. And this was the case while Moiju came into power, and later on he realized that you cannot work without India. Either it's economic issues or the security issues, and particularly what I will say, that the political stability, political issues. That India, all the countries, they realize that if you want a stable or a political stability in the neighborhood, then you have to work closely with India, because we have very complex interdependencies. Either you see the culture, you see the economy, you see the other aspects that force the particular regimes that you have to cultivate, you have to maintain good relations with India. So that the India's prime motive is to also that to keep the political stability. If there is political instability, then what would the India will face the consequences, either in Sri Lanka or Bangladesh or Maldives, that will lead to the refugee and migration problems, that they will come to India. So, but they also realize that India and the neighbors, particularly Maldives, that they have very unique relations. And whenever there are crises, and that has been in the past, either you take the COVID-19 or the climate and then the water, and there are a number of crises they have faced, that India had responded very positively, very significantly under its neighborhood first policy. That India has basically developed from the negative unilateralism to the constructive, positive unilateralism with the neighboring countries. And
so you mean to say that we just have to continue with what we are doing in a positive sense, in a confidence building measure?
No, let me put, we are doing that. India is always a responsible regional power, and under this neighborhood first policy, and we have made a significant shift from bilateralism to the multilateralism, and through multilateralism, we are trying to include all these countries, like we are talking of Mahasagar or Project Sagar and Mosam and all that. We are bringing Maldives, but we have also come out, and there also from bilateral to multilateralism, we have also come out with the constructive unilateralism that I'm particularly mentioning. But these countries, these politics, anti-India and pro-India will go on. It will
continue.
It will go on for the political discourse that they want to remain in power. Rajpaksa brothers, what they did, they brought the Chinese under the balance of power or balance of that policy, and yes, we are bringing Chinese for the China is an opportunity, and China will definitely balance India in the Indian subcontinent, and that had happened. In Bangladesh is happening today, that they are bringing Chinese and they are bringing Pakistanis, but this while they will see the ground realities. Today you see that around 20% of GDPs they have the deficits. And who will come? That India will bail out. What India has has helped Sri Lankans while they were economic crisis. So we have to be very patient. But we have to engage these neighboring countries for the regional stability, because India is looking to represent this region globally, and not only this region, the entire global south globally. So we have to take these to a very positive, very constructive manner.
Admiral Sinha, a quick comment from you on this aspect before we bring this discussion to a close is do you agree that we just have to continue what we have been doing in a very positive, constructive manner as part of our neighborhood first policy, as part of the fact that India knows its responsibilities as a big brother in the IOR, that is the Indian Ocean region, and we need to have patience and positive engagement, because internal domestic politics of these countries, and specifically we are talking about Maldives here, is bound to go through those twists and turns. That is something which we can't control and we should not control, right?
Yeah, you're quite right. I want to make just two, three quick points. Number one, China's foreign policy is to uh, increase the influence in the Indian Ocean, particularly around the Indian subcontinent. And they will continue to do this, and they have deep pockets. They can pay a lot of money. Uh, and the projects that we are doing in Sri Lanka, if that is an example, we should offer them more people development related projects. Like they have made houses, they have made toilets in some of the islands. All islands are independent, power supply, communication, all that. So, which begins to help the people in their day-to-day lives. And that is what is going to fetch the votes. Number one. Second thing is, I would firmly believe that while the party in power has to be kept in contact, the opposition parties should not be lost track of. Because in a democracy, it's a new democracy. It's a very nascent democracy. It's not very long. And therefore, it will take time to stabilize. And they are going through these hiccups, left, right, till such time they are completely intertwined economically and security network with India, their own development and India's security problem will continue. They had stopped putting the radars, which we got this trilateral agreement with Sri Lanka, Maldives, and ourselves. They had stopped putting the radars in the time of when Moizu came to power. They stopped the hydrographic survey. Now, all that has been quite detrimental to even the ship's movement. The ship said, if you don't have if you don't have present charts, we are not going. So we have to suggest to them that, look, you do more people development, and we suggest that you do 1, 2, 3, 4 water supply, electricity, housing in the islands, in the remote islands, because there are some islands where there are a lot of votes. Until such time, we have both the parties. The second point I want to make is, if China got hold of this island fully in Yamin's time or in Moizu's time now, they wanted to put the radar stations all along the islands. And most of this radar, Vishal, they're not normal radars. They all have more than 600 kilometers of range. And they can monitor your entire aerial activity in the Southern Peninsula.
It's 6 o'clock.
And you know what it means. Southern Peninsula coming under, Chinese surveillance. That's number one. Second thing is, the Hanimadu Island, which is the northernmost island group, it is only 70 nautical miles from Minicoy, which is about 138 kilometers, 136 kilometers. So even if you take a fast boat, it can reach in about 5 hours. And they are known to have the preachers, the Islamic preachers, and they have the religious affinity, and they can actually come there, land their preachers. There have been preachers who have been arrested in the past, in Yamin's time. So this is a big problem. One is security because of China. When China comes, Pakistan will automatically come. The Pakistan army chief had also gone in Yemen's time. So I would think that security is a big issue for India. And for that, whatever we have to do, build their own capacities and help people related projects.
Okay, fair enough. There it is. Thank you so much, Admiral Sinha and Professor Sanjay Bhardwaj, as well as both our experts were pointing out very clearly. Security is one of the major reasons, and specifically maritime security, as to why Maldives is really important for India, and why China is also have been trying rather very incessantly making inroads into Maldives over the years. The solution lies in the fact, as both Professor Bhardwaj and Admiral Sinha was pointing out, for India's perspective, be patient. Also, focus on the people-oriented developmental works in Maldives. Let us continue with our neighborhood first policy, our positive, constructive approach as well. But let's not lose sight of our security interests in the region. We'll come back again next week with a different topic. Till then, keep watching Worldview on our YouTube channel and stay tuned for more such invigorating discussions and analysis as well. Thank you once again.